Welcome, Mr. Ogbalu.
Thank you very much for having me.
Okay, let's dive into it. Please tell us, what is PAPSS?
So PAPSS is financial market infrastructure, a payment rail designed to bring together all the key stakeholders from central banks to commercial banks to payment service providers on this one infrastructure to now make payments more efficient such that it will have the effect of accelerating trade on the continent. Now, the prosperity of the continent is tied to the level of trade that happens between the entities that make up the continent. The biggest challenge today is that to make a payment between one African state and the other, it takes time, it's expensive, and it's not efficient. Payment has to travel halfway around the world before coming back on the continent. PAPSS seeks to bring efficiency to that process, and by so doing, drive the growth of intra-Africa trade.
Okay. All right. So, Mr. Ogbalu, give us a little background about yourself. You are the current Chief Executive Officer of the company. And could you give us a little your path to become the CEO of the company of PAPSS?
Thank you. I have a background in engineering, electrical engineering, and I've spent most of my life in technology, in financial services, and in payments. So I started out as a network engineer, building branch networks for a bank in Nigeria. And at that stage in my life, I was always more interested in seeing technology work. And over time, I have evolved to now being, then I became the person that would say, yes, technology works, but does it make money? And in that sense, I ran products, I ran e-payments in some banks, and then I eventually ran Verve International as CEO. But then I've also evolved from there. I'm now the person that says, yes, it works, yes, it makes money, but does it make impact? And that's why this role for me is one that suits where I am, as a person. So I have had the opportunity of running a number of startups. And now I'm hoping that this new startup will actually transform how we trade on the continent.
Okay. So how about the history of the company? How did PAPSS started, and who are some of the founders? Just their name and a little bit about them.
Okay, so what you say as PAPSS is a collaboration between the Afrexim Bank, which is the lead promoter of PAPSS, the African Union, of course, the multilateral institution that brings together all African states, and also the AFTA Secretariat, which is the vehicle that encapsulates our ambitions as a continent from a trade perspective in terms of making the free flow of both goods and services and human beings across the continent. So it's a joint delivery from these three parties. But stepping back a bit, PAPSS was launched as an initiative in 2017. It's the product of, I would say, the chief visionary of the PAPSS project is the president of Afrexim Bank, Professor Benedict Orama, who has, over time been looking at trade on the continent and looking at different interventions that can accelerate trade, and has come to a realization that, yes, we can look at removing tariffs, streamlining customs processes, improving logistics, but that if we do not deal with the subject of payments, all of these things, because trade, like I always say, only happens after the trigger of payments has taken place. So to that extent, it's a vision that Professor Rama had, was launched as an initiative in 2017. It was formally endorsed by AU heads of states in 2019. and they recommitted themselves just this February to the project of PAPSS. So I'd say it has the support of Afreximbank, AU, and the AFTA Secretariat, and we are doing this in conjunction with central banks.
Okay. So how about, what is PAPSS right now? Which countries, African countries, or even global countries, world countries, who are involved in PAPSS right now?
So the focus is, first of all, to solve the African challenge. And then again, Africa will not exist in isolation from the rest of the world. So at some stage, we intend to also work out a collaboration with the rest of the world. Where we are today is we are mandated to do a pilot in the West African Monetary Zone, which is the six countries in West Africa: Nigeria, Ghana, Gambia, Guinea, Sierra Leone, and Liberia. Okay, and we've done a successful pilot where we've connected all the central banks. We've connected PAPSS to all the central bank systems, and we are connecting to the top banks on the continent who have presence in the West African region. Following successful transactions between entities in West Africa, we are now extending the pilot beyond the West African region. We have successfully signed another country in East Africa, and we have also signed another country in Southern Africa. So PAPSS now is available in 3 regions. We are doing live transactions within the West African region. We are currently integrating the countries, the East African country and the Southern African country. I will be very happy to share more on the details of the specific countries, but that's where we are. But in addition to signing up countries, we've also signed a number of very critical strategic relationships. We've signed an MOU with Buna. Buna is a cross-border system available in North Africa, connecting North Africa with the rest of the Arab world. Buna would become a node on the PAPSS network. We've also signed a deal with Commercial Clearing House, who are the owners of the REPS system. And what we've also agreed is that the REPS platform will be a node on the PAPSS network so that transactions can originate from PAPSS network and terminate in the REPS system, and also originate in the REP system and terminate on PAPSS. So we're engaging the countries individually, but we've also been able to successfully engage regional systems, which can actually bring multiple countries onto the PAPSS network. Additionally, it's important to note that one of the key advantages, or 2 key things to note about PAPSS. PAPSS is not looking to cannibalize or replace existing systems on the continent. PAPSS is looking to collaborate. So that collaboration is very important to us. We're not looking to just go in, replace the systems that already exist. We're saying, no, if you're happy with your system, keep your system and connect to PAPSS, and PAPSS will bring about interoperability across the continent. The second issue to note is that the board of Afreximbank has approved funds that will support settlement finality for the central banks that are connected on the PAPSS infrastructure. And these funds it's about $500 million for when the transactions are happening within the West African region. And as we are now scaling outside of the West African region, that support scales to about $3 billion. So we're making significant progress, and we're connecting a lot of the stakeholders on the continent. We've made good progress with connecting 25 of the largest banks. And I'm sure that you will begin to hear independent announcements from each of these participants as they go live.
Okay. Okay, understood. So based on everything you've just said, it looks like PAPSS is a B2B business. You deal with businesses, not individuals. And besides banks, I believe you deal with, you do business with payment platforms, I guess, basically financial institution. Is that correct?
Yes. Again, PAPSS is an enabler for anything financial service. Okay. Once you want to do business from one country to another, PAPSS provides sort of like the super highway that makes it easy for you to actually engage in that particular service. So we've started with connecting central banks and the large commercial banks. However, we also plan to connect other providers, which include mobile money ecosystems in multiple countries, which includes money transfer operators who would require to settle their transactions across multiple countries, which includes other tech-based payment service providers. Because what we basically have done, and let me digress a little, in saying that what we've done is we've built a core, which is an instant payment system that has the ability to clear and settle transactions in local currencies, okay? And we've built in a number of safeguards, a dispute management mechanism, a number of governance infrastructures where we have a number of stakeholders who make sure that the system is governed in the way that continues to provide confidence to all participants. Now, what we've done, taking this core that I've just told you about, we've now started connecting it to central banks. Now, on top of that, we're connecting to commercial banks. And on top of that, we can now connect other payment service providers and other indirect participants. Now, on top of all of this, we've now created sort of like an innovation layer. So different products can be designed that will be able to leverage PAPSS. And it doesn't have to be PAPSS product. It could be products from anybody. Again, we want to unleash this continent. We think that what is the difference between a small fintech in Africa operating in a small country, say of 500,000 or 1 million people? What's the difference between that entity and an Alibaba? We think that the PAPSS infrastructure will be able to bridge the gap. So PAPSS is looking at it from the point of view of providing the rail that will support our products, other people's products. Our participants can develop products that will ride on it, or even total third parties who just want to use the PAPSS service to scale their products across the continent. So to answer your question, our focus is not just B2B. Our focus is to enable anything that is payment on the continent, both large value, small value, whether it's originating from a bank or a mobile money provider. As far as you are doing transactions across the borders of Africa, PAPSS will help to enable those transactions.
How about this is the last question. Where do you see PAPSS in 10 years at the highest level of PAPSS when everything is bigger, better? And what does PAPSS gonna look like, and also how PAPSS will impact the continent in the future? What's the PAPSS vision really for the future?
Yeah, to answer that question, you know, I told you a story how my life has evolved from the guy that is excited about seeing technology work to the guy that sees that technology makes money. And now my life is about, yes, it makes money, but does it achieve impact? And that's why this role for me is one that I'm very particular about. I would like to measure the impact of PAPSS from the size of intra-Africa trade. The impact, has it doubled over 10 years, okay? We would like to see a doubling of intra-Africa trade. Secondly, we would like to see the scaling of businesses. So that small shoemaker who is in Aba in Nigeria, suddenly is able to look at the African continent and say, okay, my market is not 4 million people in, say, Abia State in Nigeria, but my market is 1.3 billion Africans, okay? We're looking at the airlines today that are based across in different countries in Africa, being able to, do business in multiple countries and not worry about how to repatriate their funds back to their home countries. So what you will find is that for big businesses, they will grow larger on the continent. Smaller businesses are able to expand their markets and begin to target a larger market. We are actually going to eliminate the borders that has divided Africa using payments, okay? So I would say if you are to put the three things that I've said in 3 bullets, I would say 1 is double intra-Africa trade in 10 years, okay? 2 is cause the GDP of the continent to grow, significantly over those 10 years, okay? And then 3 is make all of the businesses that make up, that generate economic activity on the continent to actually grow as these economies grow as well. So those are sort of like 3 broad pillars. There are other ancillary benefits, but I would say the economy, intra-Africa trade, and then the businesses on the continent. Again, for example, we expect that once we achieve our goals, you will have a situation where there will be, a lot more unicorns springing up, because these unicorns suddenly find a superhighway that helps them to scale more easily across the continent. Okay, they can actually attack a larger population, and so on and so forth. So those will be my 3 objectives.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Mr. Ogbalu. This was the CEO of PAPSS, Pan-African Payment and Settlement System. So we hope, we thank Mr. Ogbalu for giving us all this information. It seems like a very exciting company, and hopefully PAPSS will be the next Alibaba of Africa, or even better. And we hope to come back and talk more about the company and give us updates.
Forward to it. We continue to look for credible voices who will join in this journey to actually preach this truly African infrastructure and make sure that the adoption is able to happen, and happen very quickly. Thank you once again.